Go. Theme song. Hey, I'm Bree, and this is my sister Jules. I'm an English teacher.
And I love a glass of wine.
And together, we drink wine as we unpack the brilliant writing of the hit 90s sitcom, Boy Meets World. Cheers! All right, so what are we drinking?
We are drinking a fabulous rosé from Austria called Christina. It is from 2022, and I found it interesting because the label has a bunch of beautiful insects. And when I read the back, it says these particular insects that are shown on the label are beneficial to the environment, specifically beneficial to the vines where these grapes come from. So,
oh, that's lovely.
It's a lovely homage to these beautiful insects that help create the wine that we're drinking.
Oh my goodness. Let's give it a taste and see how it glugs down. Oh, it's
fabulous.
It's sparkling.
It's a rosé.
It's sparkling.
Oh, a sparkling rosé. I forget that's not sparkled by default.
It's not implied. It's yeah.
It is certainly on the funky side, which I personally very much enjoy as far as organic or natural wines goes. Natural wines that tend to have a sediment, that's sort of the taste / texture that I'm feeling with this wine.
Totally. That's exactly it. It's almost, for those who don't really understand what any of that means, it's almost like kombucha. And I feel like that might not have helped. Like the people who don't know what that means are like, I don't know what kombucha is either. It has exactly what you're saying, like that fermented taste to it. But it's really smooth and it feels like it's good for you.
Yeah.
It feels like it's good for your gut. It's good. I like it.
I love the color too.
Yeah. It's like grapefruit juice. No.
Is it?
No, it's not. It's like cranberry juice with some water in it.
No.
All right. Let's talk about this episode of Boy Meets World. So the episode is called On the Fence. It's episode 2, season 1. And the synopsis is Cory paints shutters to repay his father.
I got a little emotional at the end, which we'll get to.
I did too.
Very surprising. I did not expect that.
Me too. We had a guest over, and I was getting a little nervous watching this episode because I was like, oh no, this is a little bit sillier. Like you could tell that it was a different director. I could tell that it was a different director. There were like 5 scenes in a row that all took place in like the outdoor patio. And like, I don't know anything about theater or TV or set design or anything like that, but just something I've noticed as like an English teacher or writer, someone who pays attention to the choices that writers and storytellers make. I just feel like that's an unwritten rule. Maybe it's a written rule. Maybe I don't know that it's a written rule, but you shouldn't have the same location. Do you know what I mean? Like you got to change the scene up.
Break the scenes up so it feels like it flows, like time has passed.
Exactly. And they would do time passing but with these little montages. But in the first episode, we were like in the bedroom. We were in the cafeteria. We were in a classroom. We were in the living room. We were in the kitchen. We were outside. We were like everywhere.
We got all the possible sets. And that I wouldn't be surprised if they did that also because it's a pilot and they are making sure that all the money they invested was put to good use.
It was a good pilot.
It was a very good pilot.
And the second episode, while I think it dragged a little in the beginning, ended up with tears for both of us.
Yes. Tears. Yeah.
Yeah. It was good. It was good in the end. I didn't know where they were going at first. And then I was like, oh, I don't know how I doubted this. This is why I wanted to do this podcast. Like I was like, oh yeah, the show's good. The writing's good. That's why.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So directed by David Traynor, written by Jeff Sherman. Oh yeah, and the first one was written by April Kelly. And that might have been the difference. It was really good writing on the first one. I mean, anytime you have multiple writers, I feel like well, maybe that's not true. Maybe if they don't really vibe or jibe or whatever, maybe it doesn't work out. But I feel like more writers is better because you need people to check you. And you know, I know with my writing group, like my writing gets so much better when they just help me by giving me feedback and telling me, no, try it. Air date, October 1st, 1993. Viewers. 19.2 million viewers.
That is insane. And that I think is 3 million more than the pilot. Yeah. Which is very impressive.
Very impressive.
But also those numbers are very impressive today. Cable doesn't get that kind of viewership these days.
That's a lot.
Streaming hardly gets that kind of viewership. There's just so much content today. It's hard to compare.
I mean, if we got 19 million people listening to our podcast, like I'd be like, we did it. That's it. We're done.
And all it takes is one episode.
I think it was all about that TGIF slot, right? People were going to watch it if it was on TGIF.
TGIF ABC, baby.
That was a good idea, by the way. Like, that's just a fantastic idea to be like, we're going to just have fantastic television at this time. And like everybody, like that's all everybody I knew did on Friday nights was you just watched TGIF. Like, what else are you going to do?
Yeah.
Not go out and have friends in social situations.
No, we were always watching a movie or a television show on Friday night.
100%.
And I'm sure reruns played during the week, and that was my daily activity when I would get home from school. I would watch reruns until 5 p.m. and then I had to start homework after that. But between getting off the bus and starting homework, those like 2 hours, pure bliss. Between Boy Meets World, Full House, Step by Step, you name it. All the classic 90s shows.
Exactly. All right, cafeteria. We start in the cafeteria. That's the first scene. Now, the first scene is we open up with Cory, Sean, and do we ever find out the name of the third kid?
I don't remember his name.
I don't
remember his character either.
Okay. And I have a lot to say about this because this episode was based on Tom Sawyer.
Mm-hmm.
And if you know anything about Tom Sawyer, I've never actually read it. I'm an English teacher who's never read Huckleberry Finn, who has not read Tom Sawyer, any of them. I actually have not read a lot of Mark Twain as an English teacher. Just maybe it's my generation of English teachers. We were not that, like, the canon wasn't, teachers were starting to move away from the canon, I think, when I was in high school. And we read a lot of contemporary stuff. I read a lot of modern contemporary literature in high school. I know you did. Like, you read like Absolutely True Diary of a Part-Time Indian and like Perks of Being a Wallflower, right?
And Speak. And Sloppy Firsts and Dark Dude.
Yeah.
Amazing books.
Yeah.
Those books like that got me interested in reading.
Totally. And I think that was the move that was happening when we were in high school. So I'm kind of the English teacher that, while I totally believe that there is value in the classics, and I don't, I still read Macbeth, but I also do like Persepolis and, other more modern contemporary stuff. I read Absolutely True Diary. I've done The Hate U Give, but I've done To Kill a Mockingbird in the same unit as The Hate U Give, right? So all of it's important. Anyway, but I never read Tom Sawyer. But all that I do know about it is that one of the characters is Jim, who is enslaved. He's on the run. He's a runaway. And he apparently ran away because he found out that his owner was going to sell him. So he ran away. And it definitely strikes me as a little interesting in like an uncomfortable way that they had a black actor who I was really excited to see at first. I was like, yay, like we have, because back in the 90s, like, unfortunately, I feel like that was a move. That was an activist. That was a choice, right? We're going to put this black actor in the show, and because it's the right thing to do, that kind of, attitude. And when I saw him, I was like, yeah. And then I was like, oh, is he supposed to be Jim? And what kind of made me really wonder about that is when he was wearing that T-shirt.
Yeah.
Right?
Did you recognize what it said?
I did not. I couldn't figure out what it said. Did you?
No. I thought you were going to look it up.
No, I can look it up. But it was definitely like an activist shirt. Like it was making a statement about education.
Yeah.
And money.
Yeah.
I'll look it up. But I know that Jim's character is controversial. And I know that some English teachers defend teaching Tom Sawyer because while Jim is on the surface, is a caricature of, a Southern enslaved black boy. And that can be very uncomfortable to read, especially aloud in a classroom. I mean, Mark Twain writes in dialect. I mean, he really writes in a way that the boy would speak, and it's, and then they use the N-word. The people who defend it say that Jim is meant to subvert expectations about the maybe intelligence level or capability of enslaved people. So he's actually very intelligent, and he actually is the one who so without going into it too much, because I haven't read the book and I don't want to say anything, wrong, what it comes down to is there was a black actor in this episode. He never comes back. We never find out his name, I don't think.
And he wasn't in the pilot, I'm realizing.
And he wasn't in the pilot.
There was a third friend who was white in the pilot, and he was not in this episode.
Right.
Don't remember his name either.
I wish I had more to say on that. I wish I could be like, and here's the definitive thesis of that. I don't really have that. It's just a kind of a noticing and an interesting little,
Interesting.
Interesting.
We'll see if he's around for the next episode.
We'll see. Okay, so they're talking about which superhero would you want as your dad. What did you think when you watched that opening scene?
To be honest, and we could cut this part, we kind of started at the 40-second mark, so I missed the very beginning. So I kind of came in halfway through that conversation.
Yeah. Well, my immediate reaction was, sixth graders don't talk about this? That was my reaction. I was like, really? A bunch of boys are sitting around and talking about what superhero they'd want their dad to be? Not what superhero they would want to be? Or which superhero they would want to, meet? Or which superhero would kill the other one in a war? Who would win in a fight?
I don't think that's that crazy of a...
You don't think so?
No.
Sixth grade.
Yeah.
I could see it in, second, third, fourth, maybe. But I feel like once you're in fifth and sixth grade, that's not a cool thing to talk about.
Maybe, yeah.
Obviously, in the end, I shed a tear because I understood that's when the ending happened, which we'll get to. This scene flashed again for me before my eyes, my light flashed before my eyes, and I was like, oh, and I kind of cried a little bit because I was like, oh, now I know what they were trying to do.
Yeah, setting us up for that.
Yes, and I didn't believe in it, know, and then it was
yes.
it put me in my place a little bit,
Oh,
yeah. So we meet Minkus for the first time.
Minkus. I loved Minkus.
Wasn't he so good?
He was so good, and he's so funny. Stereotypes for nerds. I feel like he definitely fulfills a lot of them, but he also makes fun of them at the same time.
Totally. And that captures Boy Meets World in a nutshell. It's so self-aware.
Yeah.
So the first moment that we see is, Sean and Cory, they squirt a water gun at Minkus. And at first I was like, oh no, I'm that's so mean. And I don't like when the people we're supposed to root for are the bullies. Because I'm thinking in my mind, oh, kids are going to watch this and think I want to be like Cory and Sean. I don't want to be like Minkus. So I'm going to make sure that I bully people like Minkus so that I can be, it sets people up to, I don't like it.
But it flips that idea on its head immediately, where Minkus pulls out a water gun and fights back. And then you realize that, they're actually kind of friends.
Exactly.
And they hang out. And that is such a cool idea.
I love it. Minkus is so unapologetically brilliant. And he's like, yeah, I care about my grades. We haven't gotten there yet, but he is a fantastic character.
He is, yeah.
Totally. So Sean and Cory and unnamed kid, who I feel very uncomfortable just being other kid, spray water at Minkus. Minkus turns around with an even bigger gun and goes to shoot them. And then the whole cafeteria ends up having water guns, and they all stand up and they all point them at Cory, who had gone over to the water fountain to fill up a water balloon. And Cory gets totally blasted with water in the middle of a school cafeteria.
Yeah, I definitely felt a little uncomfortable, but this episode aired in 1993 before the major school shootings that we've
I was uncomfortable. Why? Yeah.
I assume that's where you were headed.
No, but that's a really good point. Guns in school. I hadn't thought of it. Might hit different today.
Right. I think that scene would not have been shot after Columbine for certain.
Yeah.
And certainly not today.
You're so right.
Water guns, any sort of gun situation in school and children is a non-starter today. But in 1993, that wasn't really a thing. It was pure innocence in that scene.
I'm actually Googling school shootings. I want to know if there was a school shooting in 1993. East Carter High School shooting, January 18th, 1993. Yeah. It's insane. And then under that is like a whole list of schools shooting incidents at K through 12 schools from January 1970 to June 2022. It's been happening. I was just thinking it was very unrealistic that all of these kids would have all these water guns in school. And I was like, oh, this scene should have probably taken place outside. Like, I felt like they should have done a field, like everyone, they all take them out of their backpacks outside and they have a huge water gun fight, and Cory's not a part of it because he doesn't have a water gun. Like, that would make sense. But having it in school was a little bit silly to me. And it was like it was when I started being like, well, like our guest who was here, I was like, oh no, like making my adult 30-year-old guests watch this like silly kids show where kids are shooting water guns in school. And yeah,
Maybe they didn't build the outdoor set yet, so they had to use what they had.
well, that's why I'm kind of critiquing the director, because that didn't feel like the right move, having it in the cafeteria. They should have had it outside. It also just didn't feel like the right move to have 15 scenes in the patio in a row. So we're in the kitchen now. And we find out that like the plumbing is broken in the house, or it's broken in the bathroom in Cory and Eric's room, which, nice. They have their own bathroom in their room. How nice is that?
That's so nice.
So nice. Amy and Alan are having a conversation about the plumbing. So we find out that Alan does everything around the house, right? Like, he's like, oh, what do I need to do now? And Cory comes in, flatters his mom, and then mom's like, I really hope that compliment is out of the kindness of your heart, not because you're going to ask me for something. And of course, he wants to ask her for a water gun. The water gun is how much?
$50 in 1993. We should have checked for inflation there. How much is that in today's dollars?
$200. No, I have no idea. I just made that up, but feels like it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Well, did you catch, I think it was, I forget who said it, but somebody said, that's how much we spend on groceries for the week. I think Eric said it. For the family of 5.
No, Cory said it. He was like, well, you spend that much on food for us every week.
I was
that's
like,
not important.
I wish I spend way more than that just on myself.
I just spent $102 at the grocery store today.
Just for dinner.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
I got stuff for the week, but
wow.
I probably spent like 20 of it for dinner.
Were they selling water guns?
They were $200. No, they were not. His parents are so nice. His mom, first of all, his mom's like, yeah, I'll get you a water gun, just because he asked for it. I was like, that's it? You just ask? And they were like, sure. So Alan is like, maybe for Christmas, which would have been a more realistic answer in our house. Like, yeah, maybe for Christmas. And Cory's like, great, I'll be the kid spreading pneumonia for Christmas.
That was funny.
That was a funny line. I laughed. Then we head up to the bedroom, and we have this little interaction between Eric and Cory. Eric has this new watch, and he bought it with the money that he made working at the grocery store. So Cory gets the idea, oh, if I make my own money, I can buy my own stuff. And what was our situation growing up? Like, how could we have bought things?
We had allowances that we got in exchange for doing chores, and we had assigned chores.
You shouldn't get paid for that. Like, you should just have to do that.
Yeah, but how don't you want to buy candy at the candy store on the weekends?
No, yeah, I'm not saying we shouldn't get allowance. I'm just saying to like clean your room. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like you should get allowance for doing something that they could hire someone to do, but they're not going to hire someone. They're going to pay you to do it instead. Like painting the side of the house or something, right? Like, that makes sense to me. But cleaning your room should just be like an expected thing for kids to do. You don't get paid in real life to clean your house. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I see that.
So Cory goes down. We're now in the kitchen again. His dad is he's under the sink. He's fixing the plumbing, as he does, because he does everything around the house. And we'll get to the whole message of the episode soon. But he's like, Dad, I want a job. I want to work at your grocery store. And Alan's response to him is, you're a kid. Like, enjoy it. Like, basically, no. I'm not allowing you to get a job. What do you think about that?
I had a very personal reaction to it because that's never happened to me.
Never.
I feel like I was working since I was a little kid.
Fetus.
Yeah. We had jobs by the time we were 15 or 16, and we worked in
14.
Very intense jobs. Great jobs. I think everybody should work in the service industry. I think it should be a requirement. But
I have trauma.
Same.
But it made me spicy.
Yeah. But I thought it was very sweet that his dad said that. And knowing what happens at the end, it makes complete sense to me why he told his son that.
Totally. I think one of the reasons that the ending hit, I know we're talking about this like this ending, and I mean,
we are assuming you guys have watched the episode.
Okay, we're just gonna say it. The whole thing is that he's a superhero, right? Like at the beginning, Cory and Sean and kid number 3 are talking about like what kind of superhero would you want your dad to be, or what superhero would you want to be your dad? And the whole thing is that Alan is a superhero, and yes, he's fixing the plumbing and he's gonna like clean up Cory's mess that he makes that we're gonna talk about soon. But he is literally in the middle of working and Cory's asking to help him and to do a job for him. And he's saying, no, like, I got this. Like, you go enjoy your life. Meanwhile, he's just like gotten home from work and then taken on more chores at home. And I feel like if I was in his position, I'd be so salty that I'd have to do all this stuff and put food on. And most parents do have that attitude. And I don't even blame them for it. Like a little bit of like, I work hard and you're not grateful.
But to defend his choice, the father's choice, at the end of the day, all the work that needs to be done, the life that he built is a life he built. Cory didn't ask for any of this. He is a product of his creations. And I think he's like, this is not your responsibility. I think he says something like that. And so he's like, live your life. You're only a kid once. Enjoy it. And I think a part of him feels like he never got to enjoy that as a kid. He's like, this time will never happen again. So enjoy it. It's fine. I got it.
It's a beautiful thing. It's a selfless, beautiful thing. Like the way that you just explained it is the way I think most parents who, treat their kids that way feel. I am weirdly, I don't know what is wrong with me, but I'm like, life ain't no bed of roses, kid. Like, you gotta learn to work. And overall, your life is pretty nice as a kid. Like, I take care of everything for you. You don't have to worry about anything. You just gotta wake
balance,
up,
right?
go to school, come home. Like, that's it. So you gotta do a couple chores. You gotta earn your keep.
Yeah. I mean, you and I agree in that. Like, I do think it's important as a young person to work hard because life is not easy.
Yeah.
But I think to his dad's point is that he's too young to be caring about work, right? Like, what is the right age to start working? 11 to me feels too young.
I think if my kid wanted to work, I'd be stoked. I'd be like, yes, do it.
Yeah.
Learn, make your own money. Because it feels good. It feels good to make money and buy your own stuff and be like, I bought that. And because I started working so early, I made all my dumb purchases early. And by the time I was like 21, I wasn't making dumb. I mean, that's not true. I was making dumb choices, but I feel like I was making less dumb choices than I could have been making had I started making money like out of college,
Interesting. I feel like I still make dumb purchases. I'm like 30.
Listen, same, but a lot less. A lot less. I've made some dumb purchases. All right. So then we head outside, and we're outside for the next 12 minutes of the 22-minute episode. No, I didn't. I'm making things up. No. Feeney talks about having to grade 6th grade essays about Edgar Allan Poe's The Raven.
Do you know anything about that?
Listen, I would never teach The Raven to 6th graders.
Why? What's it about?
It's about this guy who's going kind of mentally crazy, and there's this raven that's squawking, but in his mind, he hears nevermore. Like that's the way that the squawking of the raven sounds to him. Or maybe you read it as really believing that the raven is saying nevermore, but every time the raven makes a sound, it's nevermore. And so the man is having this whole internal monologue, and the raven squawks at these moments where the word nevermore has different meaning every time, and the guy gets more and more irritated by the end because he's mourning the loss of his dead love. And essentially, when the raven says nevermore after one of his little stanzas, he the Raven is suggesting that like he's never gonna see her again, and he like loses and he gets angry, and then it ends with like the Raven is still there to this day, like, and the whole idea is that it might be in his head and it's haunting him, and the Raven might not even exist, or maybe it does, but it's all about like a man descending into madness completely on his own.
This is so funny that you say that you wouldn't teach your sixth graders the Raven, because as you're telling me this, I suddenly remembered that I went on a field trip to see the Raven at Hofstra University, and I think I was in sixth grade.
Oh my God.
I had no idea what happened.
You had no idea what happened.
I was like, this is way over my head.
It went way over your head. Exactly. And my whole thing as an English teacher is I'm not going to give writing assignments that I do not want to read. The last thing I ever want to do is read an 11-year-old writing about the Raven, because it's going to be gibberish. It's not going to make sense. They have no idea what it means unless I explained it in the way I just said, which was like the very dumbed down, like, I'm embarrassed to call myself an English teacher having explained it the way I just did. But no, I don't want to read that. I do not want to read that. And he just gave himself that drudgery. He calls it drudgery. And I'm like, yeah, of course it's drudgery. Give them something that they actually can say something about. I taught that to 11th graders and a bunch of them didn't get it. Anyway, had to talk about that. So Feeney gives Cory the task of painting his shutters. Cory paints his shutters. Turns out that he did the spray painty thing and it left marks on the fence on his side of the fence. So now he's just given his dad a job to do because he has to repaint the fence, right? Mm-hmm. My favorite thing is when Cory calls him Mr. Banana, and then at the end, no, he calls him Banana. You're gonna listen to this, Banana. And then he goes, that's Mr. Banana to you, bud.
I love Minkus for that. Also, like, shout out to his outfit, his raincoat outfit. I'm obsessed. Those, they're like what do you call it? Those, just like a rain hat. I don't see rain hats like that anymore. We should bring those back.
Bring it back. That's what I love about Minkus is he's like going to go so hard in this water gun fight, but he's also going to put on this like silly looking outfit, but he doesn't care because he's like, I'm protecting myself because I'm going to go in harder than all of y'all.
Yeah. He makes it look so cool.
He does.
His confidence is everything.
It's the confidence. Yeah. He's just wearing confidence.
Yeah. And I'm alluding, but I can't wait for the episodes where Topanga and Minkus have their dynamic because they're both so intelligent. And for Cory, who is not traditionally intelligent or intellectual, let's say that, it's funny how there is jealousy there.
Cory heads into the kitchen to get ice creams for everyone. Eric's in there, and they have a moment where they bond over the hardships of being adults, and Eric is like, ugh, like bagging groceries, and Cory's like, ugh, painting fences. And Cory heads outside with the ice creams, and Feeney comes out, and Cory makes some comment like, I sold you my childhood for $58, because this is the moment we're supposed to be like, okay, so Cory officially feels like he's tasting the bitterness of adulthood. And Feeney says to Alan, like, Cory should appreciate like hard work. He says, my father had a strong puritanical belief in hard work ethic. He worked me from sunup to sundown. And look at how I turned out. And Alan just takes a pause and looks at Cory and is like, I don't want you working anymore. I think your first responsibility is to stay 11 years old for as long as you can.
I loved that.
I felt the same way that you did about this whole thing. Like, my 14th birthday, I got a job working at like a beach bungalow. And I was like making milkshakes and illegally serving beers. The teenagers would come up to me because they knew that I wasn't going to check their ID because I didn't know I was supposed to do that. And they all looked so old to me, and they would ask me for beers, and I would, wow, I'm never going to tell you where that was, but but yeah, no, I've literally worked since I was 14, and I've never looked back, never not worked.
Wow. And look at you now.
Bro. Then we get like the final scene in the bedroom, and this is the ending we've been alluding to forever. We're finally gonna get there. Alan basically blesses Cory and says, like, go off, have fun, be a kid. So Cory comes up to the bedroom. He wrings his shirt out on Eric's face because he's just had an epic water gun fight. Eric's lying in the bed, exhausted from work. I felt that in my bones. That was my teenage
He only worked a
years.
half shift.
I know. That's what I was going to say. He was exhausted from working half a shift. I worked so hard in the service. Oh my God, guys. Tip your servers.
And bussers.
And bartenders.
Yes.
They're on their feet all day. It's so
Do you remember the feeling
exhausting.
of taking off your shoes after a 12-hour shift?
100%. My cousin and I worked at the same place, and we would come home. We would be so dramatic. We would like get back to her house, and we would just like lie on the couch all sweaty, and we would just like complain about how tired we were. And then she would get up and she'd be like, I'm going to make us a snack. And she would make microwave popcorn, and she would throw chocolate chips in it, and she would shake it up until the chocolate melted all over the popcorn, and we would eat it and be like, we earned
That's
this.
an amazing stoner snack.
And Eric's like, I just worked a half shift. Dad does full shifts. It's like, I don't even know how he does it. It's like he's not even human. And Cory says, it's like he's Superman. Superman's my dad.
Cue the tears.
The
F is cutting onions right now.
Oh my God. We just looked at each other and we're like, oh.
Yeah. And I'm crying.
When he said it, he's looking wistfully out the window at his dad, who's down below painting the fence that Cory messed up by painting the shutters wrong. And like he didn't have to do that. Like he could have been like, Cory, man, you got to learn that like when you mess up, you got to fix it. And like I would have totally supported that being the lesson. Yeah. And I think that
I think that was a little bit the lesson, because Cory did start to fix the mistake that he made.
Yeah.
And I think his father realized, you're only young once. Enjoy it.
Totally. And I think like an older show, maybe the message would have been like, you got to learn the value of hard work, son. And this is what it means to, that's what Boy Meets World, like literally like that would have been, in line, that would have been aligned with like what I would expect from a show like Boy Meets World, right?
Yeah.
Got to learn the, the importance of hard work.
But that seems like a simple story.
Totally.
This goes a little deeper than that.
Totally.
Which makes this show very interesting.
100%. I mean, I'm sure a parent or two watched this and questioned their parenting.
We're only 2 episodes in, and this is the second time I think that this episode is going to go in one direction, then it takes a completely different direction, which I think that will be a consistent theme of the show, which I really appreciate.
What direction did you think the pilot was going to go?
I thought the whole theme of love and like experiencing love would have to do with Topanga, and I didn't realize that she didn't even enter in the pilot. It's more about love for family, love for friends, and even relationships that you don't even consider, like a teacher-student relationship.
Totally.
The dynamics of that.
That is an interesting kind of love, let me tell you, because I love every student I've ever taught. I love the students I haven't even taught yet. And I think that's what makes me feel so strongly about when and if they don't buy in to what I'm doing because I love them. And when you love someone and they don't care, you get a little bit like, what? So yeah, I honestly think that's at the root of why a lot of teachers get kind of salty with students, is because they actually love them.
Yeah.
And it's hard to have it not be reciprocated.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, love and the superheroes that our parents are. That's what the first 2 episodes were about. What I also enjoy about the show is that it always comes down to Cory being in control of his own existence and his own family in a way. Like he really has power in his family to change the whole dynamic. And he uses it in this episode where there's a scene at the end where the family's eating dinner and Cory does this whole bit where he's like, all right, Dad, like I'm calling you out. You're hogging all the work. You go to work all day and then you come home and then you take on my work. And it's his like funny, silly way of, giving his dad a fake hard time, but actually kind of saying, Dad, I saw what you did. I saw that you painted the fence for me, and that was really nice of you.
Which is also the way that Eric talks to Cory.
That sideways, like we don't say it directly way. And he pulls out a water gun, but it's a tiny one. And he reveals that he traded in his big water gun for 2 tiny water guns so that he could share one with his dad.
That's so beautiful.
And in the way that his dad gave Cory his childhood, Cory saying, I'm going to give you your childhood. I'm going to give you a vacation from adulthood sometimes. Yeah. And I think that captures what the parent-kid relationship is.
Yeah. And as you're saying that reminds me of what was said in the first episode that Amy said to Cory about how, they don't play ball anymore. And I'm sure, and this speaks to that. I think that just adds a layer of emotion for me.
Totally.
That the dad was looking forward to playing ball because it kind of the dad is able to resort back to being a kid by playing with his kid. And I think having that happen in the last episode and this episode, he is reminded, or he understands that his dad can be a kid sometimes, and that's okay, and he should.
Totally. Oh my God, I totally forgot about that whole football thing. That's so good.
Yeah.
Oh,
I got a little emo as I was saying that. Got a little choked up.
That's so sweet. And then the whole family has this huge water gun fight. And that's another thing that as a kid, I was just like, nah, that wouldn't happen.
I was like, there's no way the mom would allow this, like grounded 3 weeks easily.
But she partakes.
Yeah.
And
she is consistently surprising.
For me, her joining in on the gunfight wasn't totally unbelievable because of that moment in episode 1 when she pretended to, stick up Cory with that fake gun because he was like taking underwear for his treehouse. And she was like, oh, you're an intruder, put my son's underwear down. And I was like, oh my God, she's so fun. She can be playful. Yeah. And I don't know if that was on purpose or not, but that's really good writing where that came back later. And we were like, oh yeah, it is believable that she would join in.
Yeah. It's a continuation of episode 1. It doesn't feel like a brand new episode, a brand new story.
Yeah. Except it kind of does because there's a random new kid in there that we don't know and we never find out his name. And
true.
And it's just different directing wise. But other than that, yeah, it is a continuation of the characters are pretty consistent. The other thing was like Feeney was a little bit inconsistent. Like he had that incredible monologue in episode 1. And then he his first entrance in episode 2 is him kind of being silly with the water gun thing where he's like, the water fountain is not a toy, Mr. Matthews. And then he takes a drink from the water fountain. However, the juice of the show, the soul of the show, the purpose of the show, what it's trying to do, that all feels consistent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And ultimately, that juice, that soul is why I wanted to do this podcast.
Yeah.
That's the flubber. Did you have a fashion moment in this episode?
Well, I think it was kid number 3's shirt, but I also need to shout out Minkus's outfit, his raincoat outfit. I thought that was incredible.
Yeah, mine was definitely kid number 3. That was my fashion moment because it made me go like, huh, what is that? Yeah, I paused and I was like, what does it say? Yeah. What are you taking with you from this episode into your life's journey?
Into my life's journey?
Into your personal life's journey. How are you a different person now that you have seen this episode of Boy Meets World?
I think for me, what I'm taking away, in my life,
I can go first.
Yeah, you go first. I'm like,
I'm reevaluating my values as an adult who is in charge of kids, right? Like for me, I do value work ethic and I wouldn't be Alan. I'd be Feeney. I'd be like, great, son, you want to learn to work, or daughter, whoever, honestly, any of my kids, I'd be like, cool, yes, it's important to learn to make your own money. It's important to learn, how hard people work to have what you have. And I feel some type of way when kids don't understand how much they have. It's something I understand that everything is relative, and I understand all that, but I do sometimes get like, you don't even know how much you have. So I'm really reevaluating that, thanks to Alan.
Yeah, that makes sense. For me, my takeaway is, I feel like I've been in the phase of life where I feel like I just go to work and I come home and I sleep, and then I wake up and I go to work and I come home and I sleep, and I've kind of forgotten what it's like to have a hobby or something that it's worth living for, that's not just your career, because your career is not worth living for unless you're a pop star or something really cool. But I don't do something super cool. I mean, it's kind of cool, but it's not my whole life. And I have to remind myself that, and I have to remind myself to continue to be a kid and to be silly and to be unserious. And I will say I find that in doing this podcast.
Oh, are we gonna cry?
This is healing me. Whom's the Whom's the F is cutting onions.
Oops. Oh man, the grammar nerd in me loves that word because it is ridiculous. Okay. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. If you like what you heard, please rate 5 stars. 5. 4. Why? Just make it 5.
I mean, you're already almost there. Just do the 5.
And review. You can literally write good, period. The wine that we had tonight is called Christina Rosé. Check it out. Beautiful label with a bunch of children's book drawings of insects. That's how I would describe it. Next week's episode is Father Knows Less. Funny, because we love Father. He's Superman. Cory fails a test at school after staying up late with his dad. Ooh.
And the plot thickens.
Interesting. Alan goes too hard being a kid. All right.
Ooh.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Ding, 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 ding.